everyone. We are starting the session now. So first of all, welcome aboard on this training. We are going to learn web fundamentals, basically how web works and what are the basic stuff which are getting used in building a web or mobile application. Okay, so as you know, right, we are going to cover front-end web development fundamentals. So our objective for this particular course, which is 8 week span, is we are trying to learn HTML in such a way that we can design and build the web application. Okay, we will try to design in such a way that it would be a good looking website as per the standards, and we will try to build that using CSS3. We will also learn JavaScript, and we will also see how we can use JavaScript in HTML for achieving the dynamic kind of features within your website. We are also going to learn some bit of jQuery, okay, which is just a JavaScript library which has been built on top of JavaScript to provide lots of plugins and features. And then we will see one of the UI framework, which is Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a very excellent UI framework which is there. You can use it. It's a open source UI framework, and the framework is very nice. You can build your website very quickly. You can design your website very quickly. You don't need to work on much of the CSS if you're using Bootstrap. And we will talk about that once we are into that particular topic, okay? So in nutshell, this is our objective. This is all what we are trying to achieve in this course. And we will go on now. So what are the modules we are going to cover within this course? As you know, we are going to focus on HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and then later part would be to have some bit of information on jQuery and Bootstrap as well. Okay, so the fundamental focus would be on to HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and then we will learn about jQuery and Bootstrap also. So if you go into the advanced course, there are topics within jQuery and Bootstrap also, but most of that part we will try to cover in the fundamental course, which is this course also. So let's start our first session, that is primarily focusing on HTML5, and not only HTML5 but how exactly web works, right? What was the evolution, how exactly websites are evolved, and how it actually works. Some of you may be knowing it, some of you may not be. So I would try to be as clear as possible. This is a bit of the agenda we are trying to cover today. So let's not go into the index. We will simply start. So first and foremost question comes in our mind is how web works. Even before we write websites, even before we start learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we should always understand how web works, right? How website works. You simply hit acadgild.com and some pages loads, and then you are able to see the content. You write facebook.com and you see the content. You open some newspaper website and you see the content. How it's happening, right? You are just putting some URL, some text onto your browser, and then you are getting you are showing some of the you are seeing some of the pages which is having lots of content and all, right? So how
So what is the difference between URL and URI?
So URL is basically we are going to see what is URL. We are not going to see URI, but for your question I'm going to address this. URL is a uniform resource locator, okay, and URI is uniform resource identifier. Basically, URI is a terminology which is used for backend components. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens is if you know, in the backend system, we build RESTful web services or a SOAP-based web services. That web services can be called with one identifier. And because that web services can be called with one identifier. So if I want to call a web service, let's say, who does customer interaction, who plays around with customer service, probably
Okay.
my identifier would be customer slash customer, right? So
Okay.
that becomes your URI. URI means an identifier for your backend web services,
Okay.
whereas
Fine.
URL is actually a website resource.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Coming back to the basics, so how web works. So when we go into our laptop and when we try to find out some files, right, onto your Explorer, onto your folder Explorer, you see some path, right? When you open some file, when you go to some folder, your Explorer actually sees path of your particular location. Now, same way a website works. What happens is every machine has to have the IP address. So when you look for the files on your machine, you're not worried about the IP address because it's your own machine on which you are looking for some files which you want to see on, right? What if some of the machines are not, some of the files are not on your machine, rather it is distributed in the network. So every machine can be connected with LAN, right? Or a VPN, virtual private network. Now, if you want to open some file which are not there on your system, but which is there on your brother's systems, or which is there on your manager's system, right? And you have access definitely to that. Uh, how you would access that? So first and foremost thing is you need to know the IP address of that machine. Until and unless you don't know the IP address, you cannot access the shared resource or probably a network resource. Okay, so this is very local scenario where your machines are connected and you want to look for some files onto different machines. So first thing you need to know is IP address. Okay, so keeping this in mind, we'll move on to the next slide. Now, coming to the websites. So this is about how a resource location, a resource identification happens on a local area network or a virtual private network. But just imagine that there is no local area network or virtual private network, and still you want to access some of the files like acadgild.com, right? It displays some files onto your browser. Definitely those files are HTML or JSP, or for that matter any backend or front-end technologies, but it is showing something onto your browser, right? It means that particular URL has to have some IP address associated with it. None of the websites can exist without IP address. So every website has to have some IP address. So from where this IP address comes? So I'll tell you what happens typically when you want to launch a website, right? What you do is you build your website on your local machine using whatever the technology you want to use. If you are having a only front end stuff, you don't need any backend technology. But if you want to build end-to-end a web application, probably you use Java or .NET or Node.js or Python, right? All backend technologies. And you build your application, you try to run onto your local machine using some web servers, like Tomcat is one of the web server. If you don't know these words, don't worry, we are not very much interested into that. But basically what you do is you build your website onto your local machine. Then the next step is to buy a domain. Okay, so this acadgild.com is a domain, google.com is a domain, facebook.com is a domain. If you want to launch your website, first thing is decide the name of your website and buy a domain. Now from where you can buy a domain? So there are various domain providers like big rocks, like GoDaddy, and even Amazon for that matter. And there are various other vendors who provides you the domain names. So let's assume that you have purchased one
So,
domain name.
sir, it is the internet is ruled by one single entity, right? So there must be some, matlab, one single entity which is maintaining all these domain names and which is giving out all these domain names. What is the name of that entity?
That entity name, as we all know, right? It is World Wide Web. If you want to start a business of giving domain names to the customer, you have to get registered with www. You have to provide all the infrastructure details to them, right? Where you would, where your data center would be, where your servers would be, what kind of protection you would be providing, and what kind of domains you want to provide. So there can be a .com, there can be a .in, there can be a .oo, right? That is very recently launched domain by Indian company. So that all necessary details you need to provide to www. Once your license is approved, you can be authorized vendor of providing the domain names to the customer.
Okay, sir. Got it.
So once you buy the domain name, right, what happens is that particular domain name is reserved for you. At this point of time, none of the IP address has been assigned to that domain name. So it's just a name which is registered with your company or your individual identity or whatever. Now, how you will assign an IP address to that domain name? For that reason, you need to host your website. So there are two things. One is the vendor who provides you the domain name. Another is the vendor who helps you to host your website. Okay. So what is hosting? Hosting is nothing but putting your all code which you have been built on your machine, which you have been trying on your local machine. You collect all your code, all your website code, and put it in some server. That server is provided by the hosting provider. Okay. Now that hosting provider can be the same vendor from where you have bought the domain name. So it depends on the business that particular vendor is doing. But this is two separate things: hosting and buying a domain. So first thing is buying a domain. Second thing is the hosting a website. Now, when you host a website, he will give you some of the servers on which you can host your website, and those servers will be having IP addresses. So now you are having IP addresses associated with your website. So now if you hit your abc.com domain, will it go to your website? No, because that mapping needs to be done. Okay, that mapping is still not there. A uh, how a vendor who has provided you the domain name knows that abc.com needs to go to some IP address. So what you do is you provide that IP address into your vendor's configuration. So when you buy a domain, there are lots of configuration you need to do. You can take an help from vendor also, or you can do it by yourself. In that configuration, you generally mention IP addresses. So as and when somebody hits that particular domain name, the request goes to that particular IP address, and that IP address serves all the website pages, and that's why you are able to see the pages. So this is a life cycle. This is how you launch your website. This is how you build your own website. Okay. But in between of this, there is one concept, there is one physical thing which is lying in between of this. Those are called name servers. Okay. So at this point of time, we know what is domain name. At this point of time, how domain name is mapped to the IP address, right? But there is something in between which is called name servers. So we'll go ahead to understand what is the name server. Generally, the name servers are called DNS servers as well. So you all people must be having internet, right? Broadband providers. As soon as you hit some URL or hit some website name, what happens is that request goes to your service provider's internet servers. Okay, from where actually you are getting that internet bandwidth and all. that server actually forward your request to the DNS server. So what is the responsibility of DNS servers? Domain name servers. Domain name servers has list of website and its possible IP addresses. Okay, so when I say abc.com needs to go to 10.10.10.10, that entry will be there in DNS server. So whatever the configuration you did in your vendor website, right, that configuration will actually go into DNS server. And the DNS server actually identifies that this particular domain needs to go to this particular website. Okay. Now, there can be a series of DNS servers. So you are sitting in India, your website is hosted in USA, probably. Then there will be a series of DNS servers involved in this request and response. But it will be all in milliseconds, because definitely it depends on the speed of the internet. But once it is into the domain of DNS, it's too fast. The infrastructure is too big. These are petabyte servers, and processing petabytes of data in seconds. So you do not need to worry about the speed and all, but there will be a series of DNS servers involved in identifying the IP address for that particular website. Once the IP address is found, it goes to that IP address, sees that hosted website, return back with the response. And that's why you will see some pages, some content onto your browser, right? So that is called a name server, domain name servers, or simply name servers. There is a concept called servers and clients. So as name suggests, servers are basically to serve and clients are basically to consume, right? So there is no confusing concept here. It's very simple. You have servers, which are machines, which are high configuration boxes, which provides the data which client is looking for. That's it. And clients are what? Your browser is a client. If you are running if you are building a mobile application, your browser within your mobile device becomes a client, right? If not, if you are onto the browser, your machine's browser becomes the client for that server. So that's a server-client relation. And when you build a website, there will be always at least one client involved, and there will always be at least one server involved, because server is responsible to provide all the data to clients, and client is responsible to render that data onto the browser, right? So one server, one client is minimum for a end-to-end request response lifecycle. So understanding the URL. So as we know, URL in the question which we discussed in before some 3-4 slides, right? URL is basically it is basically a uniform resource locator, but in nutshell, it's a domain name which you try to hit. Now, this particular communication happens on one protocol. Okay, this communication between the server and between the client happens on one protocol, that is called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's a protocol. I forgot the RFC, but you can search for the RFC for this protocol and you can see how this protocol works. Basically, when you build a website, you do not need to worry about this, because every browser, if you want to build your own browser, this is the protocol which you need to implement. So like Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari, Opera, Mozilla, if you want to create your own ABC XYZ browser, the first and foremost thing you need to do is implement the HTTP protocol, implement entire RFC of HTTP. So we are not interested there, because we do not need to worry about what is there inside the RFC. But one thing we need to know is,
excuse me, sir, what is RFC?
Basically, RFCs are, I forgot the full form, but RFCs are standardization and instruction on the protocol. So when the organization build a protocol, they actually gives you step-by-step communication on how that protocol works.
Okay, okay, fine.
So RFC is basically, I forgot the full form, but every protocol there is a RFC, like SMTP RFC, I think 843 is, it's a numeric number assigned to every protocol. And once you read that, there will be a set of instruction on how the communication should happen through this protocol.
Okay.
Sir,
So,
excuse me, sir. Sir, where does the Apache servers and all these things come in? What are these? I mean, I have heard a lot of these names. What are these things?
Apache servers are web servers basically. So it is there on the server where you have hosted your application.
So this is a kind of technology we need to learn or something else?
Sorry, come again.
Sir, is this a kind of technology we need? Is this a kind of technology like some language or like something like that, or this
No,
is?
no, it's not a language. First thing. Second is it's a server altogether. Apache server is a web server. So what is web server? Web server is a server who gets all the requests from your browser and serves you the content. Okay, so as a web developer, you do not need to learn the server, you just need to use it.
Okay,
So
sir.
Tomcat, Apache Tomcat is one of the web servers.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Apache
understood.
Tomcat is one of the web server. If you want to build your web application which communicates with the backend system, you can use Apache Tomcat. If you have a static website or if you have everything into JavaScript and all those stuff, probably you can use Apache server, which is specific web server, which doesn't have application server related specification, lightweight web server.
Okay, sir. Understood.
So HTTP is the protocol on which we speak from browser to the server, and server speaks back to the browser. So HTTP is the protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, and then the rest part is your domain name. And after the domain name, you may try to access some particular file, like in our first example, right? We were looking for some file and we were going deep down to the folder. Same way, you can go deep down into the website by giving a specific resource name. So tutorials.php is a resource. You can have abc.jsp, or you can simply have abc.html. So that particular resource you are looking into that website. Okay, so you can have this kind of combinations, and this entire statement becomes a URL. So HTTP means first thing is the protocol on which you are going to make a connection. Second part is the domain name, and third part is the resource, specific resource. That's the optional part. Specific resource on that particular website, whichever you want to looking for, whichever you are looking for. Okay. Going to the next slide. Again, it's URL only. So I think we have learned enough on the URL. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's a protocol which is implemented by every browser to communicate to the server to get the content of the website. Okay. There is another flavor of HTTP which is called HTTPS. Now, most of the websites work on HTTPS. So what is HTTPS? Basically, HTTPS is a HTTP only, but on a secure channel. That secure channel can be on SSL, which is secure socket layer, or a TLS, which is transport layer security. So when a website communicates over a secure channel, the confidence becomes high, right? Otherwise, you will feel that you will feel that whether this website is giving any virus or not. right? Any malware or there or not. That kind of suspicious activity will not be there on websites which you communicate over HTTPS. So HTTPS is more secure, and clients get more confidence when he speaks with the server over HTTPS. So HTTPS is a secure channel basically. There is a typical way of implementing HTTPS. There are certificates which is provided by the authorized certifying authority, and those certificates needs to be transferred between client and server. But we'll not go there because it is little bit on the higher side of the infrastructure, and we are not worried about that at this point of time. If you want to make your website HTTPS, you can ask your hosting provider. They may provide you certificates which can be installed by the vendor itself, and then you can be very well run your application on HTTPS, your website on HTTPS. But it's a secure channel, and it's always a recommended way of launching your website. Use HTTPS rather than using HTTP. So this is full web request lifecycle. As I said, once a user hit a request, it goes to one of the service provider server. Then from there it goes to DNS server. From DNS server it goes to the actual machine where your website is hosted, and then from there you get the content back to the browser. Again the same thing. Now we are into the content of what is HTML and how to work with the HTML. So from the introduction, very simple stuff. HTML is a hypertext markup language. So HTML full form is hypertext markup language. Basically, HTML is a way of representing data by the browser onto the screen. Okay, and HTML5 has been the latest version of HTML. We are going to work with HTML5. We will see what are the differences of HTML5, though there are not significant differences, but we will see what is the focus of HTML5 and what are the changes in HTML5, what are new features in HTML5. We will see all those things. Okay. Going to the next slide, syntax. So I think you all must be knowing what is the syntax of HTML. If you don't know, there are three sections of HTML. First is the header part, second is the body part, and third part is the actual document. These all sections are wrapped within the HTML tag. So starting tag is HTML, ending tag is HTML, and everything inside this becomes your document. That document contains header and a body. Okay, so we have a head tag, you see here, right? Inside head you have multiple tags. One of them is title. We will see what are other tags available inside head. And then you are having body. Inside body you actually write your HTML code. So this is a simple structure of HTML. Now various tags of HTML. So before we go there, I would like to show you a simple HTML. I think you all must be aware of this, but let me increase the font size.
Sir, which tool are you using?
I am using Sublime Text.
Okay, sir. So in Sublime Text, which type of project do I need to create?
Sorry, come again.
Sir, in Sublime Text IDE, which type of project do I need to create? For example, I have Visual Studio. So when I start Visual Studio, it asks now which type of project do you want to create. So which type of project should I create?
Sublime Text is not the IDE, so you do not need to create project and all. It's simple a text editor. So it's just a text editor which provides syntaxes for HTML, JavaScript, Angular, jQuery based on the packages you install. So It's not an IDE where you need to create project and all. It's just a simple text editor.
Okay, sir. Sir, is there any drag and drop tool using which I can design a website page, or using which I can define an HTML?
Actually, there are drag and drop tools. In fact, you can build your own free website on wix.com, wix.com. There you can do drag and drop. Other tools are also available. I'm not remembering that, but you can search in the Google and there are various online tools available. From the software point, I don't know any such tools where you can drag and drop. I think Dreamweaver is one, but that is a licensed one. So you need to install it, and then you can drag and drop the content in Dreamweaver. That is, Dreamweaver is of Adobe, so you can search for that.
Okay, sir. So what is WordPress?
WordPress is a little bit different thing. WordPress is what you can say CMS, Component Management System. So basically, when you use WordPress, you can build your website using WordPress, and WordPress provides lots of themes. So you can use that theme. You can you have to use their way of writing HTML. Okay, so WordPress has a various way of writing stuff. So you need to learn it, and then only you can write something on WordPress. So WordPress is altogether a separate technology, not technology, but you can say it's a CMS, basically a content management system.
WordPress is commonly used for making your own blogs, etc. It is not exactly a HTML editor. It has its own, kind of interface for creating content and hosting.
Yes.
You
So
don't have to
not
write much.
only it started to create blogs, but now even people are building e-commerce over to WordPress. So it has been used a lot apart from blogs. But in nutshell, it's a CMS, content management system, and it's altogether a different domain. You need to learn what is CMS and all.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Which one is the best text editor tool for the web development?
I didn't get your question. Can you please repeat it?
Which tool is the best one? Should we go ahead and download the Sublime text?
Sublime text is what I prefer. Eclipse is also what I prefer. But there is no specific best or not best kind of stuff. It's about the preferences you are having. So I started my learning in Sublime and I am stick to it. So probably that's the reason. You can search in the Google. I think Sublime is widely used. Visual Studio is also widely used, but I'm not sure how, because Visual Studio is IDE altogether and you need to build the project and you need to create the project and all those stuff involves there. So it may take a little bit longer time to, get
Yeah.
up and running.
Yeah, I already have downloaded Sublime text. So just
Sublime text is what I feel is enough to build the website.
yeah, thank you.
If you don't have, definitely if you don't have any backend component. If you have backend component, that definitely you need some IDE. So this is the sample structure. I'll explain what is the doc type, not now. I will explain a little bit later, but just see this part. So we are having HTML inside that. So this is the document, right? So this is our document. Starting from first line to the 11th line, that becomes our document. Line number 3 to line number 7 becomes head, and line number 8 to 10 becomes body. Inside the body, you put all your content which needs to be displayed onto the browser. Okay, so head thing will not be displayed onto the browser. Only body thing will be displayed onto the browser. Okay. Now what goes inside the head tag? So there are title. Definitely there are title which are included inside the head tag. There are various stuff. So basically, if you want to include other files, that goes inside the head tag. So if you want to include JS, that goes inside head. It's not mandatory, but you can put it inside head. If you want to include CSS, you can put it inside head. Okay. So So this is a sample HTML. If I can go to back to the basic HTML tags, right? So there are various tags. I think it's all understandable, very easy. So you have various heading tags. You have a bold, italic, center kind of tag. You have a paragraph, line break tag. You have horizontal ruling, then images, then hyperlinks, right? And we can see it in our example. You see, so again, the same structure. Inside the head, I am having title. So that title basically goes where? So I'll show you that. So this title goes here. Whatever the title you put becomes the header of your tab, browser tab. Okay. So if you see, I'm having HTML basic tags as the title. The title goes here, and whatever the body is there goes into your browser content, right? So I'm having a paragraph tag. I'm having this bold line as well using B tag. I'm having I for italic. So you see what is bold, what is italic. This is the italic statement, right? So center as well. So center puts the text into the center, justified into the center based on your width of your laptop or browser size. So if I make it a little bit smaller, it is justified to the center. Okay, so that's how the center works. Line break is basically a kind of, you are breaking a line. It's a kind of new line character. So you see here we have a new line here, right? After tag we are having a new line, and the last is I have included one image as well, right? So this is the image which I have included using image. SRC is basically attribute. So in HTML, these are some of the basic tags which you will use when you build your website. Okay, and let's go back to our course. Okay, so DOCTYPE. Now this DOCTYPE is basically for browser. Does it make any difference if you don't include DOCTYPE? It doesn't make any difference. Okay, it is, people include it for semantic purpose. So you know, it increases the readability, it increases the maintainability of the code. So as and when you open some page, if you mention DOCTYPE, people understand what is the content of this, right? Definitely you can identify that through extension, like .html will always be having HTML code, .php will always be having PHP code, and .jsp will always be having JSP code. But still inside the page you have a DOCTYPE. Browser understands it, and then browser tries to interpret it and display the content onto the screen. So one of the browser's responsibility is to read the HTML, interpret it, parse it, and then display the content onto the screen. So even if we have written these tags, right? P tag, image tag, HTML body tag, the actual content which you are seeing is this. So how that is coming? So browser is having HTML interpreter inbuilt. Every browser has it. What it does, it goes over to all the HTML, parses it, interprets it, parses it, and then whatever the content is there, it gets displayed onto the screen. Okay. So DOCTYPE is a kind of indicator to the browser that this is the HTML page, right? Previously, in HTML4, there were multiple DOCTYPEs available, like strict transitional frame set. I would not go there because it's nowhere used and it's nowhere required now. So rather than spending unnecessary time there, I will simply skip it. But just remember that there were multiple DOCTYPEs available in HTML4 era. In HTML5, we have only one simple doc type, and that is this doctype HTML. As I said, it's not mandatory, but it's always good practice to have it onto your HTML page. Okay. If you want, you can read about this various doc types, but as I said, it's of no use now. It was used by HTML4 and now it's not used. Strict, transitional, and friend set.
So
Moving to
now,
the
whatever HTML we
next,
write
so
is
hello
by
world.
default HTML5, or is there any difference? Like, how do we basically HTML is just it's a text file which we are typing using tags, etc. So how do we determine whether the HTML we are writing is HTML5 or HTML4 or anything like that?
So you do not need to identify it, to be precise. Browser needs to identify it, right?
Yes.
Browser is actually going to interpret your HTML and then parses it, and then it's going to display the content on onto the screen. So
Yes.
you as a developer, you do not need to worry about whether you are using HTML4 or HTML5, but you need to make sure that your browser understands HTML whatever you are writing, right? So if you write some of the HTML5 tags which your browser doesn't understand, then he will not
Okay.
display the content. Now, when this will happen if you are using older version of the browsers, which has been
Correct.
built only to interpret HTML4 and not to HTML5.
So HTML5 is interpreted by which all versions of IE, Firefox, like IE 8 and above, or is there anything like that?
IE8 and Chrome and all are very much in line with. So basically, Chrome doesn't allow you to use older versions, right? As in when you go online, it updates it automatically. But if you are
Yes.
using IE's older version, I8 and lesser, you will get problem if you are using HTML5.
Okay, so anything above IE8 recognizes. What about Mozilla Firefox?
Mozilla Firefox again have a same tendency of a Chrome, like it goes, you go online and it updates it. So I don't think you will be having problem in Mozilla.
Right.
Safari and
Okay.
Opera, I don't know the versions. You may need to check it.
Okay. No problem. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Going to next slide. Comments. So how you include comments in HTML? Very simple stuff. So if I want to add something comment into this, what I can do is I can have start tag, then exclamation mark, and then this 2 dash, right? So your comment starts with this. This is the syntax you need to remember, right? There is no conceptual answer which I can give, that why explanation and why 2 dash. No, I don't have any answer for that. This is the syntax which we all need to remember. So you have this starting tag and then the end is like this. Okay, so you have exclamation mark, then 2 dash, then what are the content you would put into the comment, and then again 2 dash, and you mark your end tag. So comments like this. Okay, and if I save it, if I run into the browser, you will not see such content because it's a comment, right? So this is how you put comments into HTML. What is the use? The use of comments are just to provide easy maintenance to the developer. Okay, so you signify something that, okay, the code below represents this, the code below represents this, the code below contains this and that and that and all. So comments are only useful for maintenance purpose. And to be frank, comments should not go into the production. Production means when you launch your website, it should not go. The reason is it gives identifier to outside world what your code is doing, right? So comments are always useful while you are building the website. Once you are planning to launch it, remove all the comments and then only go for the launch. Okay, so probably some questions to you people, just to wake you up if you are sleeping. The question is, do all HTML tags come in pair?
No, some of them like horizontal row, HR, I think it, and BR, break does not come in pair. I don't know how it is in HTML5, but the older version of HTML, BR is a single tag and HR is also a single tag.
That is true. That is true. So some of the tags are not in a pair, like input also. We don't have a pair of input. So we will see it when we build the forms. So it's not an HTML, all the HTML tags come in pair. Okay.
Okay.
Second question is, does a hyperlink apply to text only?
No, it applies to images and the table data cell.
Absolutely.
No.
So that is the right answer. Very good. And how do you insert a comment? So I think I have already told you that. So good. So only one person is probably much more aggressive in answering the questions. I would request you all to bombard your answers to me. Yeah. Going to the next slide. Now the HTML5. So what is the difference in HTML5? So HTML5 is built. So the focus more is onto the semantic side of the page. What is the semantic side? What is semantic element? So a semantic element is basically an element which describes what it is doing. So if I have a tag hello, you will understand, right, that this tag is doing hello to somebody. If I have a tag called paragraph rather than having P, you will simply understand, okay, this is a paragraph. So this is the main focus of HTML5, to build the semantics elements in your HTML, so that readability and the maintenance becomes very easy for HTML. Okay, so if you see some of the examples, image, right, then form tag, header, footer, section, navigation, navbar, right, table, some of the these tags are semantic tags. Why? Because the name itself tells what it is doing. So HTML5 focus more on building semantic HTML tags, just like this. Header, footer, navbar are all HTML5 tags. Article, section, all these are again HTML5 tags. Video, audio, again are HTML5 tags. So by the tag name itself, you can simply say what the tag is going to do in your website, right? So this is more focus, HTML5 is more focused onto semantic element. Now, this is something which is specific for less than I9. So as I said, HTML5 is supported IE8 and is not supported by IE8 and below. So if you want to check that, and if you want to make your HTML5 element working in those old browsers, right? There is one JS library which is available, which is called HTML5 Shiv.js. Okay, this JS library, what it does, it actually makes your I9 and I8 and below versions to read and interpret HTML5 tags. So if you are thinking that you're building some websites, and if you're using HTML5, and if you are sure that your client is going to use I8 and below, probably this is the solution to you. Use this JS library, HTML5 Shiv.js, and then you can simply write HTML5 content, and it will be rendered properly onto all browsers as well. So this is specific in IE, okay? So as I said, no problem in Chrome, Mozilla and others, because you won't be having older versions at all. So this is only specific to IE. So you can remember this library. You don't need to don't need to understand it. It's just the library which you include into HTML. Okay, so how you include some of the libraries into HTML? So JS, right? So as I said, you can put it inside head. So there is a script tag, script. You mention the type, which is JavaScript, and then you mention from where it should be loaded. So here the path will come. Now this path can be this path can be from uh, another website also, like www.something.com. So if you see here, our SR says enter URL. So this source can be URL, or it can be a relative path to the file. So I can have slash, or probably dot slash js slash html5 shoe.js, like this. This becomes my real relative path, right? So you can mention the relative path, you can mention the URL, okay, and you can mention the absolute path as well. So absolute path is not recommended. Relative path and HTML path is only, HTML URL is only.
So one question, this HTML5 shiv JavaScript file, it seems to be owned by a private party, maybe somebody called Shiv. I mean, it is not endorsed by the W3C, maybe. So, like, will this always work? So, what if he decides to take it
No,
off?
it is owned by Cloudflare. So if you see the URL, it is owned by Cloudflare company,
Okay,
and
right.
this is a widely used open source JavaScript library specifically for old browsers. So nobody is going to question you on this.
Okay, fine.
Going to the next slide.
Can you
HTML5
explain
tag.
a little bit more on the relative path and absolute path, just a little bit?
Okay, so assume that my JS is inside this folder basic HTML, so I can simply write like this. Okay, now a relative path, when you use dot slash, it means it goes above the folder. So from basic HTML folder, it goes to this folder, which is my session 1 code. And then if I say like this, it will search this JS library into this folder. Okay. If you are having any folder which is inside basic HTML, and inside that folder, if you are having this JS library, probably you can write like this, JS, like this, or you don't need this. So it means in basic HTML, you have a JS folder. Inside that, you are having this file. So this is relative path, relative to the file on which you are writing this. So where you are writing index.html. Where is your index.html? Index.html is inside basic HTML. Relative to this, where is your JS file? So you mention it here, like this. So that is the relative path. Absolute path means you mention C:// abcd/js.html. So you starts from root if you are having window folder. If you are having Unix folder, you start with the root, right? So that is becoming your absolute path, and that's the difference between two.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yep. Some of the tag of HTML5 tag. Now one thing, so this is all simple understandable tags. I will cover some of the examples of it, but before to that I would like to tell you one thing is, this all tags are only for readable purpose, okay? Don't misconcept this by going by name. So if I say footer, doesn't mean that this is going to be displayed at the bottom of the page. If header, doesn't mean it's going to be displayed onto the top of the page. You have to write the CSS to make it displayed onto the end or onto the head of the page. Okay, so HTML5 tags, as I said, it's a semantic tags, just to increase the readability, just to increase the syntax of the tag, just to increase the maintenance of the website. but it doesn't mean, it doesn't give any logical a logical placement to that. So when I say header, no logical placement. Okay, so we will see some of the example now. I have some HTML5 example. Um, Not this. Okay, this will work. So if you see here in the body, I have header, right? The attribute is ID role. Again, this role is uh, again for readability purpose. So you will see it a lot in HTML5, the role attribute within the element. So just to brief you about element and attribute, right? That this particular name becomes your element name or tag name. This is your tag name, and whatever you give inside that tag, inside this caret bracket, becomes the attribute. So ID is one attribute, role is another attribute, and this entire part, starting tag to end tag, line number 17 to line number 29, becomes the entire HTML element. So tag plus attribute plus the content inside the tag is equal to HTML element. Okay, so ID is the attribute, role is the attribute, and then inside that I am having header tag. So there are 6 header tags in HTML5. So where are that? Yeah. So I will show you it once. Header 1, header 2, sorry, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 till 6. Those are H1 to H6. So this is my header. Inside header, I have another heading, then paragraph, then the navigation bar, right? Inside navigation bar, UL and LI. What is UL and LI? UL is unordered list. LI means list item. So this is always nested. Okay, your LI cannot exist without UL. So UL is unordered list, and LI is list item. Let's see it into the browser to understand more. Okay, so this is my heading. So you see it's getting displayed very in very simple way, right? You can simply put a paragraph and it will be, you can display still like this. But if you see now, the page is structured and it's more semantic, right? So you are having header, inside that you are having one header heading, then the paragraph, then the navigation bar. Inside navigation bar, you are having this menu, right? These are all menus. You need to write CSS to make it look alike of a website where you will be having this menu on top of the page, right? So,
sir, what is the actual use of the nav tag? Because it's not doing anything just for the programmer's readability. It is there, nav roles equal to navigation. It is not imparting any special characteristic to the output, isn't it? Is that so? What is the function of the nav tag? Nav.
So basically, as I said, HTML5 text doesn't include any logical aspects into your HTML element. Okay, so even if I mention header, it hasn't added any logical content. It's only for readability and maintainability of the website.
Okay, you previously mentioned that there are some video and audio tags in HTML5. So even they are just for readability purpose only, and it doesn't mean that if we use a video tag, automatically the content we give will be a video, nothing like that.
The exception is there. So video tag and audio tag are capable enough to play your video and audio.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Fine,
So
fine.
that's a good point that you raised it, because video and audio, we are going to cover it, but video and audio actually has the capability to play your video and audio. You don't need to do any JavaScript around to it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, yes.
So anything else we have today? So we already understand doctype. You can optionally include the lang as well. Again, this is for this is going inference, but this is again for readability of what the content is going to be. Okay. Um, there is meta tags in HTML. So inside head, you are having meta tags, right? So meta tags are very, very important when you build your website. Some people build their website and they don't consider meta tags. Now, what is the use of meta? When a search engine robots or crawlers crawl your website, the first thing it looks are meta tags. From meta tags, it understands what your um, website is of. So there are various values of meta tags, and you need to define it to make your website searchable on Google or Bing or any other search engines, right? Because search engine works on a crawling of website, and then based on the crawling, it actually make an index with each and every pages of yours based on how many times your pages are getting visited and all, and then only it gets returned as a result. So when you don't use meta tag, it's very hard that your website is going to be returned as a result of some Google search. You need to include the meta tag. Okay, and basically meta tag is a key value pair. So you have a meta, then you have a name where you can say description, and then the value, where you can actually mention the value of description. So here you can say if you are having a e-commerce website, you can say online buy fashion products. So when somebody searches from this, right, you can even have a meta tag where you can have name is equal to keywords, and then value will be online shopping, buy online. So these keywords, when somebody searches for this keyword, website will be there into search engine's result. Now it will be displayed on the first page or second page or third page. It depends on the index of your website. And how your index is defined, it depends on how much traffic you are having, how many people are visiting your website, how many times your page is getting loaded on various browsers. So based on that, Google or any search engines indexes your website, and then only it returns the result. So it can be on first page, second page, third page, but you need to mention at least these two things: description and keywords of your website, and do this on every page, so that your every page is discoverable by the search engine. Okay, so meta tag are very important. It goes inside the head of your HTML.
Sir, so meta tag need not be included for an internal web application that is deployed over the LAN. This is applicable only for web apps deployed over the internet. Is that so?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Meta tags are only needed in case if you want to launch your website to World Wide Web. Okay, so okay, once again, call to wake you up. Um, the question is, what is the difference between HTML elements and tags?
Element is the tag plus attribute plus content inside the tag. Well, tag is just the first word that comes after the less than symbol.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Next question is, what is semantic HTML?
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I didn't get the first answer.
So the first answer is HTML element is a tag plus the ID attributes like ID, role, whatever, right? Name. So tag plus attributes plus the content inside the tag is equal to HTML elements. So if I give you the example of probably not this. So this is element and P is tag. So tag, let's say I have attribute name is equal to my paragraph. So tag plus the attribute plus the content inside the tag, right, is equal to HTML element. So this entire line is HTML element, whereas P is tag. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, it is clear.
What does doctype mean? I think we are yet to cover the second question. Okay, so I want answer from Yusuf. What is semantic HTML, Yusuf?
It's meaning both the web, the browser, and the describe the meaning to the both browser and the developers by non-semantic elements and semantic elements.
That is true. So semantic HTML means it provides more of a kind of descriptive interpretation even by the browser and even by the developer. So that is true answer. What does doctype mean? So I want this answer from, okay, anybody can answer.
When you write DOCTYPE, it gives you most version of the HTML, version of the web page, or not sure.
Yeah, so when you insert a doctype, it again increases the interpretation from the browser itself. And when you write your own HTML, it increases the maintenance and readability from the developer and the development team. So that's true, right? Now, questions. So I think we had enough questions during the session, but I'm still open to answer any more questions you people have. We have assignments also. So I hope you people got the access to the dashboard. You go to the dashboard, you would be having assignments, and I would really recommend to complete your assignments, right? First session, this session was more of a theory. So don't worry, we have enough practicals going forward, especially in JavaScript and CSS. You would be writing more code and lesser this PPT and all stuff. Even I don't like going through PPTs. So don't worry, we would be writing code a much rather than this. This particular session, first session is always of a kind of, theory stuff. But later sessions would be more of writing code and doing it. So we would actually write some code. We would see some code written already, and we would see the actual examples. From the assignment point, I would really recommend to complete all the assignments, right? So it's very, very simple assignments. The first assignment is about, so you need to build a page like this.
Do you have those images?
So don't worry about these images. You can pull out any images from the Google, try to insert it. So it's only to give you the understanding about the image tag. That's it. So you can build something like this. You have a paragraph, you are having underline as well, you are having italic as well, right? You are having line break as well. So try to build this, it's very simple, and submit it to me or GitHub. If you don't know how to submit it to GitHub, probably you can ask your coordinator. He will assist you in submitting it to GitHub.
Sir,
Yes?
can you show some examples with the video and image tags in HTML5?
Video and audio we will cover. Image tags, I think we have
Sorry,
already
I
seen.
meant audio here. Yeah, sorry.
I have a problem when I downloaded some images from Google, and basically in HTML the images are not displaying. I don't know how if you could show one example, that would be great.
I didn't get your question, Yusuf.
No, I've been doing some HTML thing and trying to display the images. So I've downloaded some images from Google.
Okay.
Doing some practices, and in SRC, and I put the images tag, whatever. And what I'm trying to say here, the image is not displaying in my site. I mean, the website.
Okay. So I would recommend one thing. When you are onto your browser, right, press, if you are into Chrome, press Ctrl-Shift-J, okay? And once you do Ctrl-Shift-J, it will open this console. Now, try to see if you are getting such error, fail to load resource. If you get this error, it means you have given a wrong path here.
Okay. That I was using .jpeg.
It will work. It will work. The extension doesn't matter. PNG, JPG, BMP, any extension will work. Only thing is you need to make sure your path, your relative path is true. If it doesn't work, try to put absolute path starting from your C drive or D drive or whatever.
You put dot. Do I have to put dot in it?
Sorry?
No, it depends on where your file is. Where the
Okay.
image file is located.
Just go ahead.
So I'm like, what is the actual benefit that HTML5 offers over older HTML? Is it just the readability and part of it, or is there something else? Because seeing this, it would appear that you will have to write more code in HTML5 than other HTMLs. So to achieve a thing which,
specific benefits from the fundamental point, there is no benefit because the way of working of HTML still remains the same. As I said, the HTML5 focus more onto the semantic website. It means more readable website by the browser. So it's easy for browser to interpret the HTML. So if you know, there are various artificial intelligence software people are building for natural language processing, NLP.
Yes.
It actually listens to the natural languages. So if you see, the HTML5 is going that way, paragraph, center, header. So your browser is actually processing natural languages. And that's why it increases the speed of the browser to interpret the entire HTML.
Okay, but even in the older HTML tags, like if we give H1 or H2, like even the browser will interpret that also, isn't it? Though, how is it different here in HTML?
It interprets. It's a backward compatible, right? So HTML 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all are backward compatible, and all browsers supports this. But HTML5, from HTML5, the focus is more onto the semantic side of the website. So you build a website in a plain English language. So that's the idea of building HTML5. Definitely, there are some tags which are definitely having some functionality like video and audio tags. But
so could you show that? Could you show an example of that right now, or could you type some?
video and audio tag, I can show you, but it would be it would be like hurry. So just wait for a while. We are going to have a session on that as well, and I would cover that as well, how to put a video and how to put an audio. But and it's very easy. There is no specific, even I can show you now, but we are already running out of time, and because of that, it would be just going in a hurry. But I will show you that. But
So
just
will we get a
remember,
recording of this video on our website, or will it be mailed to us? Or recording
sorry?
of this session. Will we get a video recording of this session?
Yeah, absolutely. You will be getting it in your dashboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Assignments we have to submit by when?
So we are having weekend batches, right? So before your next batch, before we meet next Saturday, it's always good you submit your assignments. Though there are no deadlines, but it's definitely for your benefit only. We are not going to get any benefit. You only are going to get benefit. So try to submit it. Try to do it as soon as possible. So you know you would be having multiple problems in it, and then you would be able to discuss it with me.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
So that's it from my side today. There are 4 assignments. Try to complete it. If you are having any problem in it, discuss with me. My mail ID, I am going to ping you all now. So you can definitely get in touch with me anytime, even during the session, even after the session completes.
The assignments have to be uploaded, or it's just for our doing in our local system and just for our viewing?
See, if you upload it, it's good, because if you get a good marks, you may get a good discount in other courses. So it's your benefit.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's something new. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Surely.
yeah. So again, it's subjected to the conditions. Okay, you may need to get in touch with the coordinator, because I am
Sure.
only kind of mentor.
Okay.
So this is my email ID, rahulrvs.1985@gmail.com. Okay, and you can get in touch with me on this email. Please mention the subject line starting with Acadgild, so that I can identify that this is from Acadgild. Okay. So that's it from my side today. If you don't have any questions, we can close the session. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot, and have a nice rest of the day. Okay. Bye-bye.